Hey everyone, greeting from Boston. I'm here with one of my favorite followers on Twitter and beyond, Louis Gudema. Louis, how are you?
Good, Evan. Good to see you again. Always
Ye-
fun to catch up and chat with you.
Yeah, it's been a while, although we're geographically not too far away, but I see you on Twitter every day, so it feels like we're still connected. And you're one of my favorite thought leaders in the marketing space. You're very practical, very hands-on, as well as talking about theory. I was a big fan of your first book, Bullseye Marketing, and you enjoy pain because you have another edition coming out. So how's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, it's not too painful. I have the second edition coming out in May, and the reaction to the first edition was very gratifying. Douglas Burdett, who is the host of the Marketing Book podcast, really gave it a rave, and so he's written a new foreword for this new edition.
Oh, great.
And so I'm thrilled about that. And I got feedback literally from all over the world. Got companies bought hundreds of copies to distribute to their partners. It got named one of the best marketing plan books of all time. So I got a lot of great
Awesome.
feedback on that. And one of the things about this new one is the previous one was B2B and B2C, but this is solely focused on B2B. So I think it'll be even more valuable for people because of that focus.
Well, people, including myself, so I hope to get my hands on it ASAP. Before we dive any deeper into that, maybe introduce yourself, your background, and your career and what you do at Bullseye Marketing.
Yeah, so Bullseye Marketing is my framework. My consultancy is called Revenue and Associates,
Hmm.
and I work as a fractional CMO and marketing strategist for B2B companies. And so a lot of that is for seed stage startups and for SMBs. And I really kind of put together the whole strategy and then oversee the execution. And you can see that from the book, which not only has this high level marketing framework, the Bullseye Marketing Framework, but has then 24 chapters on major marketing channels with hundreds of tips, best practices, examples of how to use them well. Uh, but before that, I graduated from college about 3 years ago, but have had a very full career since then, uh, with about 30 years of marketing experience with everything from MIT startups, which I mentor, to companies like IBM and the Boston Globe, and had my own agency for a dozen years, pivoted to become a SaaS company before selling it, and have done VP of Business Development also for a couple other agencies, selling 20 or $30 million worth of services and SaaS to companies of all sorts.
You've done it all. I like that you have a similar background to me and that I was in sales most of my career, not marketing. So you really, sales is where the rubber really hits the road with customers and clients. Uh,
It does.
yeah. And
It,
that's part of your framework is how do you deliver revenue? That's the revenue
yeah.
associates.
Well, and it's yeah. I mean, marketing has, as I talk about in my book in the new edition, I have kind of contrarian chapter on analytics and data that will raise a few eyebrows, but I think that with sales, you either hit your numbers or you don't, and most salespeople don't.
Well, tell me about that and what have you seen changing, through the pandemic, the last few years and into this new year of volatility, change, disruption, downsizing. Like, what are your thoughts on the current environment in marketing and sales?
Well, one of the things that I really focus on in the book, and when I'm giving talks and such, and when I'm working for my clients, is that this whole explosion of marketing technology over the last 10 or 12 years, Scott Brinker has his famous martech landscape graphic, which 10 years ago had a few hundred companies on it and now has 10,000. And so what that has produced, since all those tools give you a lot of data, a lot of analytics, and a lot of opportunity to optimize campaigns, is a real focus on short-termism, as some people call it. And, what's this campaign doing? What can we do this quarter? And companies have really lost sight in many cases of the real value of brand marketing, and that brand marketing is like the rocket fuel for lead generation. Uh, and that's not just true for Coca-Cola, it's true for B2B companies too, and startups. I just saw a post yesterday on LinkedIn from a woman who was the CMO for Gusto when they grew from 50 company customers to 50,000.
Wow.
And now she's the CEO of Mutiny, which is an AI marketing platform. And in this post on LinkedIn, she said, uh, lead generation marketing generates, many more leads. But whenever we would stop doing brand marketing at Gusto, 6 months later, our lead gen numbers would fall off the cliff.
Wow.
We had to have both. And they're fundamentally different messages. They're fundamentally different ways of talking to people, because brand is, a lot of it is about emotion and creative and humor and characters and stories. And lead gen are all those messages that you're going to forget 10 seconds from now if you don't act on it. You see a lead gen ad, a social media post, you either act on it or you forget about it. It's completely forgettable. But I'm sure, Evan, you've got commercials that you remember from when you were a kid, and I
Oh
do.
yeah. And jingles, that was the thing back then. Jingles and
To-
songs.
Totally, totally.
And
And
I
so
think that's what
those are the
social media does such a good job at is, as you say, the brand marketing. I like to think of it as top of mind. Are
yeah.
there brands, are there tweets, posts that you kind of see day in, day out that kind of you notice, maybe you don't engage or interact with or click on a link but you definitely notice them. And I see that daily on, social media. And, it's the part of it's this journey, right? So where are we with the customer journey? Do you still talk about that in the book? Or is that kind of a passe?
Oh no, customer journey is
Okay.
is very important. And as you say, social media can be a good way to have that top of mind awareness. If there's someone like yourself who you really look forward to seeing, what are they talking about today? What are they posting about? Uh, that person or the company that they're at is, going to be on your mind. You want to get on in the morning and see, what are they talking about? So that can be definitely a way to build not just awareness, but what they call mental availability. That it's a step above awareness. It's where people think of your company and your product at that time when they're ready to buy. Because 95% of B2B customers aren't looking to buy what you're selling today. It's just the reality. They've got their vendor or they're not interested in the product today. Um, but at some point in the future, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, they are going to want to buy it. And you got to be top of mind at that time, because if you aren't, they're just going to go to the companies that are and buy it, and you won't even know that that opportunity was out there.
That's such a great point. I used to tell myself when I was selling, carrying a bag, had a quota, the answer was never no. It was just not now.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. Most companies, if you have an interesting product or service, there is a time. It just might be not now. You're an amazing networker. You've hosted amazing events around Boston. You've done mentoring. What's the role of those in-person, get-togethers, meetups, little micro events? Are those still on your radar as a great way? Is networking still a thing?
It's one of the unfortunate impacts of COVID. As you said, I've been heading up a Boston group called Sales and Marketing Innovators, and you were good enough to speak at it a few years ago. And we're terrific. And uh, those kinds of events are harder, have been harder to do for the last 2 years. Obviously, people weren't doing many in-person events. A lot of people were leery about going to an in-person event because of COVID. Online events started to drop off because people just got zoomed out. And so, you just saw, I saw that Salesforce at their last Dreamforce conference had 40,000 people, which would be like off the charts for anybody else. But in 2019, they had 170,000 people.
Wow.
So it's a 75% drop from pre-COVID. And we saw at SAMI, we saw, 20, 30%. It just kept dropping during COVID. I think there's starting to be a resurgence of in person. COVID for a lot of people, if you get it and you're vaccinated, it's usually not too terrible. There's a few cases of long COVID, and that's the only thing I'm really concerned about. But the current variants, are not like Delta back in, March of 2020 when it was like really a vicious thing. So people are starting to come out again. And, what I find beyond the networking in these organizations is the getting involved. If you're part of the team that's running the organization and planning the programs and working with other people, and in addition to showing up at every meeting, that really makes a difference.
Absolutely. Switching from people to tech, you mentioned that martech stack of thousands of companies and growing, getting bigger. I've seen, chat GPT marketing engines now spring out of the ether.
Yeah.
How do you discern between all these different martech solutions? How do you build a stack? Any best practices that you'd recommend to folks who are not just looking for an agency or a CMO like yourself, but a tech solution? Given all the choices out there, it's a little overwhelming.
Oh, it's completely overwhelming, and the reality is that many of them are quite good.
Mm.
Um, and so, it's a highly competitive situation. In the first version of my book, in the first edition, I had several recommendations at the end of each chapter for software programs for email marketing or social media or conversion rate optimization or whatever the program might be. And I've taken all that out because there's too many good programs and it changes too quickly. And, the best companies will just duplicate the best new features of their competitors pretty quickly, especially in that SaaS area. Um, so, I tend to do a bake-off between two or three different clients. For example, I was consulting with a client and they needed a CRM. And they chose one that's interface looks like a spreadsheet. Even though it was a CRM, it was a lot more sophisticated than a spreadsheet because they were used to using a spreadsheet to store all their sales data. And it was a very convenient UI for them. Whereas, other companies use HubSpot or they use Zoho because of the whole suite that you can get for a ridiculously cheap price. And so each company is going to have different things that are important for it. And you have to kind of figure those out. And whatever is important for you, uh, you're going to find it out there if you look for it.
Absolutely. So you're a big writer, obviously, books, of articles, of tweets and posts. And where do you think we are in marketing with the written word? Obviously, ChatGPT has woken everyone up with, amazing uh, opportunities for AI generated content. But just talk about the written word. We were told a few years ago, everything's video. We're doing video now, video consumption, video creation. No one reads anymore. What's the reality? I imagine it's somewhere in between. I mean, everyone literally, in our space, writes and reads, so that it must have some level of importance.
Oh, I think it still has a huge level of
Okay.
importance. Like you said, all, social media is heavily written. There's certainly some video posts, but it's a lot of, even with all the short video, TikTok like videos that now have appeared on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. There's still a tremendous amount of written content out there. And at this point, Chat GPT is in its early days. And I think it's good for making suggestions and giving you ideas in terms of marketing. It's not at the point where it's doing like crack creative yet. But who knows? Maybe, in a few years it will. This is another reason why I didn't put tools into the new version of my Bullseye Marketing book, is the AI is advancing so rapidly that whatever I write will be out of date, 6 months or a year later. But it tends to be that new channels don't put old channels out of business.
Hmm.
Like TV didn't destroy radio and movies.
Right.
They all continued to exist. And so it's the same thing with marketing. It's, marketing is most effective, has the most impact when you do it on several channels. You have a multi-channel approach, and the way you use text is just one of the arrows in your quiver.
Great. Well, one of my favorite things about the Bullseye Marketing book was that I was in it. So
Yeah.
I was super excited. Tell me about the section on social media. What you have any questions? What are your thoughts on social, where it's going? And I can happy to share my 2 cents. My audience knows me pretty
Yeah,
well, but what
absolutely.
do you think?
I want to get 4 or 5 cents at least, Evan.
Okay.
Uh, so I'm, a big fan of paid social. I'm a big fan of
100%.
ads on LinkedIn, especially because that's not only highly targetable to the B2B audience that I'm interested in, but it's the right context, and context makes a big difference in how well your ads are received and the impact they have. I'm not a big proponent of organics B2B because uh, the platforms show the posts to so few people. But I know you're doing great things with organic social for B2B. So tell me what's working for you.
Yeah, I think as always, it's somewhere in the middle. Paid amplification is fantastic. Twitter does a thing I believe still called whitelisting, where the algorithm will take an organic post and turbocharge it to a giant audience. That's something that they do behind the scenes working with brands. So I've done
Mm-hmm.
activations with Cisco and other, Ericsson, other brands where I have, a good organic post and then it just goes crazy viral because they're putting paid dollars behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think paid works well when it's super targeted. You can still on Twitter target to a pretty reasonable extent on hashtags and keywords, and the ad manager is still good. And you can do that even better on LinkedIn with targeting. I mean, you can LinkedIn and Microsoft has a whole graph of the enterprise landscape basically, and can target by every imaginable title and keyword and
Yeah,
interest. And so it's
yeah,
super powerful. And I think what's great is a combination. Someone who has a large audience like me, that sort of gets you into what do you call the lower end of the atmosphere when there's a rocket launch, the stratosphere, and then
okay,
paid can get you into outer space. And but
okay.
what I think is true is what brands are failing to do is create interesting content around their paid campaigns. I mean, if it's just infomercials and brochures and people just tune it out, they want to see conversations, they want to be informed, entertained, or amused, made to laugh. And if it's not in those three categories, I don't care if it's paid, non-paid, organic, it's just not going to get reach. I think the other things that people like LinkedIn are doing is they're really trying to boost creators. They're trying to boost. It knows how long you're on LinkedIn. It knows who you're engaging with. It knows the kind of written or video content you're producing, and it will reward you for being a content creator. Literally, there's a setting called
Mm-hmm.
content boost. So yeah, these things can be very mysterious because a lot of it's algorithmic, but my experience is, increasingly it's a hybrid of paid and organic that works the best.
Yeah, we had one of my clients recently, we had a post with an infographic that got like many times more engagement than some of the other posts we had done. And so, we just started to promote it. And promoting on LinkedIn, the CPM is like a half or a third of other types of advertising on LinkedIn, or even less. Um, so we got a huge reach for this post uh, for the next couple weeks for a very small dollars.
Yeah,
So
and
paying
I
attention.
think we tend to forget about the other platforms. So this live stream is going on my YouTube channel. I'm like
Mhm,
a little tiny fish on YouTube with 7,000 subscribers. But YouTube likes new channels, it likes new creators, and it will award impressions and reach to people it thinks might be interesting or have engaging content, again, algorithmically. So, and of course, Google is still the biggest search engine. YouTube's the second biggest search engine. And too many people are overlooking YouTube, again, in B2B contexts. And it's a mistake. So I think YouTube, double down on YouTube. Reddit, people think is for, teenagers, but it really is a giant community. There are some subreddits that are relevant to B2B of millions of people. And
mhm.
if you can get your content upvoted there, lots of eyeballs, lots of engagement. Uh,
Yeah,
so,
that's a
so
good
yeah,
point. So, do you, what you've done in the past is akin to what I call, well, it's connecting or it's social selling. I know that you're often trying to reach out to for your clients to top influencers, top people in their target companies, maybe part of their ABM strategy. Uh, is that, do you see that one-to-one connection the most vital thing that you're doing for your clients? Or are you trying to help them build their brands? Or what kind of uh, impacts are you trying to produce?
I think what often gets lost in the big companies under branding campaigns are the individuals. I mean, literally, not just executives, individual engineers, business marketing leaders, technologists. So a lot of what I do is put a spotlight on, individuals within the company. So whether it's an Ericsson or Dell or Intel or others, or T-Mobile Business, I'm doing one-on-one discussions with thought leaders and insiders in the company who otherwise don't get exposure or visibility and engagement. They're not spending 8 hours a day on social media. And
Hmm.
it really humanizes the brand. It supports the branding campaign. And in all these companies, they're tremendous individuals who are sort of behind the scenes, never get really the attention and engagement they deserve. So in that sense, yeah, I think interviews like this is a great way to put a spotlight on employees and in turn, activate those employees because, employees love supporting each other, particularly on LinkedIn, sharing each other's content, commenting, liking, etc. So putting, it's Brian Kramer said that human to human connection is what's most powerful.
Yeah. It used to be 10 years ago, people talked about social media campaigns. And I don't think of social media campaigns anymore. I think of social media as part of the whole marketing mix. Uh, that it accelerates and amplifies, your content and allows that kind of outreach and can be used for targeted, highly targeted ads and a lot of other things. Um, but I don't think anyone, that I know just thinks of doing just a social media campaign, certainly in the B2B sphere, like they might have thought of it 10 years ago.
Yeah, it really is synonymous with the internet now. I mean, we spend our time on the internet, on social.
Yeah.
So the distinction has gone away. And there's some unique opportunities, particularly around live events on key trends, movements, grassroots kind of movements, keywords and hashtags that are trending. How can you participate in the conversations as an individual? Nowhere else is possible but on things like Twitter And so that's why I hope it doesn't go away. I hope Musk gets his act together and it becomes, what they're talking about being the town square. But in the meantime, even if you take 99% of the nonsense on Twitter away, what's left is 1% is really pure gold in terms of the people, great conversations, great individuals, great content. And that's what you're really targeting. No pun intended with Bullseye is those great conversations. And that happens on LinkedIn too. You can insert yourself into really great conversations by adding in a smart comment, for example, on a post from a business leader, and people notice it. Uh, there's still not
Yeah,
enough, not the noise that you see to the point where people can't, connect and notice and reply and engage on comments and posts on LinkedIn. So great opportunity. What are you most excited about over the next few weeks and couple 3 months?
getting my book out there.
Okay.
Doing a few more, dozen more of these. On a personal level, my wife and I just bought an RV, and
Awesome.
so we have a travel trailer, and we bought an F-150 to tow it around. And so this spring we're going to be doing a lot more going around and hanging out in the woods in our trailer, and that's going to be fun.
Well,
Uh,
perfect opportunity for Starlink. Just add that to the top, and you have high speed internet. Are you
it's
going to head?
it's definitely in
Are
the
you,
budget.
are you going to head west, south, north, or not too many eastern opportunities here in Boston? But where,
Right.
where, where are you headed?
We're headed all over. So, for the next, for the spring and summer, we're planning on doing a lot of weekend and like 1, 2 week trips, and then heading off in September for some really like a full year all over the
Wow,
country. Uh,
wow.
and like you said, have Starlink continue. I would like to continue to do some work. Uh, One of the things that came out of writing the book last time was some ghost writing or co-writing opportunities. So, I want to continue to do a few hours a day working, and the rest of the time walking in the woods with my wife and our dog, and enjoying and relaxing.
I love it. Well, the road trips, these are going to be a spectacular, wonderful experience or a complete disaster. So I hope it's the former and not the latter. With my
I,
technical acumen, it would be the latter. I'm not very good at attaching and hitching trailers and all the various things that are involved. But I think you have your head on straight here. You'll do a good job.
we definitely had a lot to learn in the first year, and I'm sure that's why we want to spend 6 months doing shorter trips before we set out
Ah.
on the big one. They didn't go to the moon on the first shot. We gotta do some suborbitals and 2 or 3 orbit trips first.
All right. Well, good luck. Have fun, Louis, and I'm sure I'll see you around town at some point. And yeah, thanks again for the insights and joining. Sharing your vision.
Well, thank
Take care.
you. Always great to catch up, Evan.
All right, Louis. Bye bye.